Good afternoon, one and all. I welcome on the session of Quality Cafe. I welcome the Deputy Convener C. Ranjit Agarwalji, the Senior Central Council member. I also welcome Vijay Maniarji, Hemlata Jawar, and MP Vijay Kumarji, who is the past Central Council member. The three, Vijayji, Hemlataji, and MP Vijay Kumarji, are the panelists. And let me tell you, friends, today the Secretary of the CAQ, Ruchika, is going to play the role of moderator. She is also a chartered accountant and very proactively taking initiatives with respect to the audit quality in the CAQ. Friends, today we are going to discuss on SQC. How SQC is important, which is known as Standard on Quality Control, and which is effective for all of us since 2019. Serious chartered accountants about the serious work in the assurance and audit practice will always follow the Standard on Quality Control SQC1. And it is very rightly said by our President also, Debashish Mitraji, that the audit is a very serious job. And when it is a serious job, it has to be done seriously. And how it can be done seriously? Unless and until we do not maintain the quality into it. Friends, this SQC1 is known as the mother standards for of these standards on audit. We have total 46 standards, and of which SQC is number one standard, and it is known as SQC1. Friends, let me tell you, it's the standards, this particular standards apply at firm level and are applicable to all the firms. It's only the nature of policy and procedures developed by the individual firm to comply with the SQC will depend on various factors such as size and operating characteristics of the firm. The firm's system of quality control should include policy, procedures, and all these procedures addressing each of the 6 elements which are mentioned thereunder in the SQC. If the firm has a system of quality control in place, it would not only be helpful in evaluating the scores, but would also qualify for the matured level of ranking under the audit quality maturity model, which is going to be mandatory from 1st of April 2023. And let me tell you, friends, the AQMM, which has been launched by the ICAI, is first of it's a first in the world, which is known as a matured model for audit quality. We shall cover the intricacies of all these 6 elements during the speaker sessions, followed by a panel discussion. We propose to have the next session on the Quality Cafe in the October on the audit quality maturity model, which is, as I told you, which is going to be mandatory. for certain class of firms who are doing the audit of listed entity, who are doing the audit of insurance company, and who are doing the audit of the banks. We shall skip the September month owing to the busy period with the audit assignment. And friends, let me tell you one more thing. SQC1 as of today is important for all of us, but SQC1 is going to be replaced by SQM1 and SQM2. S is already replaced by ISQM1 and ISQM2 by the International Auditing and Assurance Standard Board of IFAC. So soon there will be change in India too, and we need to follow SQM1 and SQM2. But SQC is, as I told you in the beginning, that being the mother standard, it helps us to have all kind of policy and procedures in our firm. And if all these are there, it makes the firm to run smoothly and do the qualitative work. With this, I hope that the session, which is going to be taken care of by Vijay Maniar ji, Hemlata ji, and MP Vijay Kumar ji, will give all of you to lots of learning. And for that, I would be requesting CA Ranjit Agarwal ji, who is the Deputy Convener of the Directorate of Center for Audit Quality, and who is always guiding me with respect to the various new initiatives to be taken up at the Center for Audit Quality, and giving his inputs how the quality in the audit can be improved. I would request him to introduce all the three speakers and take the session forward. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Convener Durgesh Kavra ji, and all the three panelists today. And it is one of the most important session of this Quality Cafe, which was started by this Center for Audit Quality. And the kind of topic today we have, SQC1, which we can consider as a mother of all, mother standard for as far as the regulation of the firm is concerned. And one of the important aspects of this standard is that documentation. And the way we have changed the documentation criteria in the Code of Ethics recently, last 2 years. So this standard also gained importance because of these changes. And I'm happy that the kind of speaker we have, they will deliberate extensively on this requirement of this SQC1. We have CA Vijay Maniar sir. He has a vast knowledge of 35 long years in the professional experience, and he has done extensive experience in serving large Indian as well as multinational corporate house across India, across the industry, listed and unlisted. He was also involved with the GAP and IFRS is concerned, and most importantly, he is very much involved with the various functioning technical discussion groups in our ICI also. So I welcome CA Vijay Maniar sir. We have another very important panelist today, CA Hemlata Jawar, and she has also a 15 plus 12, 27 years of experience as far as professionals and the practical experience of this IFRS regulatory inspection and reporting is concerned. And she will guide us how this standard SQC1 is important for the firm. And last but not the least, we have our CMP Vijay Kumar. He was the last 2 term our Central Council member, and he has headed the Accounting Standard Board first 3 years as a vice chairman and the next 3 years as a chairman. And being in the capacity of the chairman of ASB, he was the part of a NFRA also. And he's a CFO right now in CFI. But the kind of huge experience, corporate and practice and other industries concerned, MP Vijay Kumar, nobody can say he is a gem of the person. He was a good addition to the council. We miss him in the council because he deliberately decided not to contest the election after 2 terms. But still, we are fortunate that on the request of the ICI, he keep on coming to the platform ICI. So welcome MPB sir for this very quality discussion in the Quality Cafe. And to moderate all this session, we have Ruchika, Secretary of this Audit Quality Center. So I welcome all of you, 3 of you, for this very fruitful discussion, which can guide the firm. There are 90,000 firms in India, and they will be beneficial for your discussion. So over to Ruchika to take this session forward, and welcome all 3 of you once again for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I welcome the panelists today. Now, I request Vijay Maniarji to begin the session. We have divided the 6 elements of the SQC between the 3 panelists. So, Vijay Maniarji, we would like you to share your views on the requirements with respect to leadership and governance and monitoring under the SQC1 requirements.
Thank you, Ruchika. Durgesh Kabraji, Ranjit Agarwalji, all the support team of CAQ, and active support of Ruchika for any clarification and organizing this particular session. So I truly appreciate. I also truly appreciate the effort which Institute is making in ensuring that audit quality is improved, because it's very, very important that to have the confidence in the financial statements which we as auditors are signing. Unless the stakeholders has the confidence that there is a quality which is being maintained by the firm, it does not lend that credibility into the financial statements. And SQC1, as rightly mentioned by Kabraji as well as Agarwalji, is the mother of all these standards. And what the standard says is that the responsibility of ensuring that there is a quality which is maintained, it is of the leadership. And what does it mean? So let's first just discuss what does it mean, the quality we've been discussing. It means that the professional as well as the firm comply with the professional requirements, regulatory and rigor requirements which is applicable to the firm, number 1. And number 2 is the reports which we are signing is the appropriate report under the circumstances. So 2 things, just think about it. Number 1 is that the professionals as well as the people so the firm as well as the people comply with the professional requirements, legal requirements, and the regulatory requirements. And secondly, the report which we are signing as auditor is the most appropriate. So it is not saying that one has to issue only unqualified report or only qualified report. It has to be appropriate under the circumstances and by the requirements of the professional requirements, legal requirements, and the regulatory requirements. It means that whatever is the requirement under which the audit is done, we as auditors need to comply. So that is number 1. There is a requirement under the institute, and whatever is the auditing standards of the institute, the code of ethics of the institute. If it is a company, then compliance with the Companies Act is important. If it is a listed company, then in addition to the compliance with the companies, the SEBI requirements are important. If it is a bank, then banking regulations requirements are important. RBI rules and notifications are important. If it is a insurance company, then IRDA requirements are also important. So the idea is that all those requirements are being met so that the stakeholders get enough confidence in the financial statements. And this responsibility is none other than the leader of the firm. It's a leadership responsibility. It may have been delegated to somebody, but the ultimate responsibility is of the leaders of the firm. For the operational reasons, it may have been delegated, but that person has to be competent enough and should have authority to enforce those requirements. And that is what is the expectations from the quality standard. So the bottom line is that quality is above everything. And since it is the responsibility of the leadership, if there is a conflict, it is the quality which will take the precedence and not the commercial and financial consideration. Because we all are in a way commercial enterprise. Our ultimate goal is the financial goal. However, we need to ensure that the precedence of quality is over the financial goal. So any decision which is taken by the firm, it's considering that the quality is of paramount. This requirement is not independent of anything. It is the way the firm should function. So anything which the firm does, it is the quality which comes in first, and hence it is the leadership which is responsible. And let me give you a couple of examples just to drive home. So when we do the audit, first thing what we look at is what is the tone at the top. This is exactly what it says. So when we read the financial statements of any company, any entity, we look at what is the tone at the top. And that tone at the top has to be commitment to quality. And all these 6 parameters of quality, the leadership has to ensure that those are being complied with. And let me give you a couple of examples around this. So for example, if we have accepted any audit at a lesser fee, does it mean that we spend less time on the engagement? The answer is no. We need to spend the time on the engagement what is as required. Again, I go back to what is the expected from the leadership, expected from quality, is we comply with all the professional, legal and regulatory requirements, and the report issued is appropriate under the circumstances. So whether the fee is high or low, our effort should not be depending on the fees. Or let me give you one more example, which is of independence and which is of paramount, and hence different firms will have different regulations in and around the independence. So for example, if a client gives us very expensive gift, what do we do? Right. Now, if we start as accepting the gift, will it not impair our objectivity and independence? So it is the duty of the leadership to ensure that in order to maintain independence, what kind of gifts, if at all, can be accepted, what should be the limit? Because clients would want to give us gifts, but we should stop. We should very politely refuse as to why we cannot accept any expensive gifts. Also, it is the responsibility of the leadership to ensure that when the audit is accepted, and this is very critical, do the firm has the capability and the competency to execute? Capability in terms of the people, and more so it is relevant in today's times because of the challenges on the people front. The firm has to evaluate whether the firm has the capability to accept the audit, and number 2 is whether it is competent to do it. because the competence is different, because audit has become such a complex, as Kabraji was mentioning, it is a serious business. So it was always a serious business, but it is become very complex compared, considering all the rules and regulations which are there. So whether the firm has competency to accept. So suppose there is an audit which is of say overseas company audit which we are getting. Do we have bandwidth to serve that client? Do we have understanding of that geography? Do we have, what are the rules and regulations of that geography? And this all, if it is a financial goal which is at the paramount, then it is very easy for us to accept this as a financial goal. But SQC1 very categorically says it is the quality which is of paramount importance, and hence the leadership has to ensure that it is the quality which is taken precedence over financial goals. And hence it is important just to close this as far as the leadership responsibilities are concerned. It is their responsibility. It has to be all pervasive in everything what is being done by the firm as an auditor. The quality is pervasive. It is not a separate window which is there as to one has to comply, but it is in whatever it is being done, the quality has to be there. I'm happy to take any questions at a later once the discussion is over. And the next one which I have to discuss is on the monitoring. So the firm will have all sorts of procedures, policies and procedures to obtain reasonable assurance that it has complied with this standard. However, what is the evidence that it has actually complied with those standards? And hence the leadership will ensure that all these compliances are monitored. So they should be monitored in terms of, say taking annuals for as far as the independence is concerned. So there is an independence confirmation which is given by the partners. If there is a file which is audited, the file needs to be, reviewed by the independent people. How the whole employee process is monitored by the firm. So right from the recruitment, correct, to allocation of the right people to the team, to ensuring that the engagement is served properly, to ensuring that the right and the correct, the time is charged on the engagement. But more importantly, there is a bandwidth which is available with the team to execute. And how would firm will ensure this? If the firm has an independent monitoring mechanism. So the leadership will not only set all these processes in the first place, but also ensure that those are functioning as desired. If there are any new changes, how those changes are communicated. If there is any fallacy or deficiency which is identified, then how whether those deficiency is all pervasive, which is within across the firm, or it is only qua few engagements, and how those communication happen either to the whole firm or to the respective team or those individuals, and to ensure that the right messaging which is there is communicated to the people across, in whether by way of training, whether by way of announcing the results, or whether by way of client acceptance, or the way the reports are drafted, to ensure that there is a quality across. So that's it from my side. Ruchika, how do we take question answer? Please,
Sir, we'll take the question answer at a
Sure.
later stage when we are over with the panel discussion.
Thank
Thank you so much, sir. While we all understand, that the leadership is important, that toning at the top is important. Why we thought of having this SQC1 today is because, as Durgesh has just mentioned, that we have AQMM in place, which is being mandated. And, few of the requirements of the AQMM flow from these SQC1 per se. And the SQC1 has been there for long, since 2009, but still firms, especially these smaller firms, still are not very convinced with having a documented policy manual per se with them. So we would like, through this session, we re-emphasize the need to have one and the 6 elements of the quality which we need to build in those. So thank you so much, sir. We take it forward to Ms. Hemlata Jhavar for sharing her takeaways on the ethical requirements and client relationships under the SQC. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. To share the SQC1. I'm glad that all the elements of SQC1, but also about the independence, the ethical requirements, and some bit of like client acceptance and continuation process or the procedures that are required under the SQC1. So with that background, I continue on the discussion. When it comes to ethical requirements or adherence to the ethical requirements, it is very, very relevant as far as the audit profession is considered or concerned, because we are like, where a lot of stakeholders look at us based on our audit reports, various decisions are being taken by various stakeholders. And hence, it is really, really required that the auditors are adhering to the ethical requirements. SQC1 reiterates that a firm needs to establish policies and procedures to ensure that firm and its personnel, so it is neither only the firm or neither only the personnel, it is supposed to be the firm as well as the personnel, comply with the relevant ethical requirements. The fundamental ethical principles as per the ICAI's Code of Ethics are integrity, objectivity, professional competence, confidentiality, professional behavior. While some of these have been touched upon by Vijay Bhai, I would further throw some additional light on that. As correctly mentioned by Vijay Bhai, that if you are accepting a very high value gift from the client, how do you ensure or how do you establish or substantiate that your integrity is not breached? And that's how, like, as a professionals, we have to be very, very mindful that whether are we living up to these fundamental ethical principles, those are imposed on us whenever we are performing any assurance engagements or any related services relating to the assurance engagements. So as far as integrity is concerned, the engagement team and others. So others is the team members who are engaged in the engagement or in the audit, in addition to the regular team members who will be performing the audit procedures on a day in, day out basis. And those other people includes even the experts whom we have engaged for a certain specific areas. So the engagement team as well as the experts who are ultimately a part of or the extended engagement team members has to behave and ensure that the integrity is intact. We have come across, like I have spent my 20 years in the audit profession, and since the time I started my career till the time I have reached to the level where I am actually signing the audit reports of the organization as a engagement partner. So I have come across in various stages where client would want to give you valuable gifts and all. At point in time, one of the client where we had found a lot of audit observations, and quite a few of the audit observations were resulting into audit qualifications. And I was the engagement manager that time in that particular client, and client offered me a pen, which was costing say 15,000 rupees. And this thing I'm talking about something 10 years back. And I was like, how I can take this? Because in my firm, there was a proper policy which was communicated to each and every person when they are joining the organization. So the policy is saying that you cannot accept high value gifts from the client. Rather, you should refrain from accepting any gift from the client. But what if the client is sending you a sweet box when it is a Diwali or when it is a Christmas? So in that case, depend upon how the policies and the procedures are implemented at the firm and communicated to the each and every individual in the firm. So that's why in that particular client, even if I was a new joiner in the organization, but still I knew that it is my responsibility to have my integrity intact, to behave professional and very, very with a courtesy. I refuse to client that as per my firm policy, I cannot accept these kind of valuable gifts. So this is the thing that needs to be inculcated in the entire organization, be it an intern on the job or be it a manager or a partner. So the amount and the level of gifts will be differing from level to level, that we all do understand. But at the same time, we also do understand what are bearing on our independence, what are bearing on our objectivity, what are bearing on our professionalism. And this is that only adhering to the firm policy, you should be day in, day out practicing these principles. When it comes to the objectivity, we shouldn't be biased about the client. Many times what happens when there is a continued team and the engagement is being done by the continued set of people, so they do have some kind of comfort level established, some kind of rapport established with the client professionals. And in that case, many a times it may so happen that you may end up bypassing or skipping the professional skepticism, assuming that this particular thing will not be compromised by the client or will not be manipulated by the client. So that should be avoided, and this kind of communication should be inculcated and communicated, cascaded throughout the organization by regular trainings, by regular this kind of sessions where we reiterate that we have to be objective. We shouldn't be taking any time irrespective of the level of comfort that we have with the client, the level of comfort that we have on the management, but still we should be unbiased as and when we are approaching any assurance engagement. So I'll just share a recent example where one of the forensic engagement we did at a firm, and even these kind of engagement, the SQC1 will be having an impact, because my firm, if the CA firm is taking a forensic engagement, so in that case, SQC1 will be applicable to that engagement as well. And where when we were reviewing some of the documentation and all, so one of the junior team member, during the discussion, they just made a comment, this person doesn't look a suspected fraudster, he's a god's man, he's such a sweet talker and this and that. So that is what good that, so it is good that the team member was open enough in front of discussing in front of the manager, in front of the partner, what is his or her views about this particular person for whom we were doing the investigation. But at the same, so this is one of the thing that is required, that the team should be open in sharing their views, and then only we will come to know whether there is any threat that this kind of principle or objectives will get compromised. So there we reiterated, you should look at the person, you should be looking at the evidences, you should be looking at the documentation, because every time a person who is a rude talker will not be wrongdoer, at the same time a sweet talker will not always be a right doer. So this is what this is what we have to reiterate across the organization, across the teams. When it comes to the professional competency, again, many a times we have observed that we lose on the clients because the competitor firm have taken that client cutting the fee. So as Vijay Bhai also said, if you are just cutting the fee, if you are taking a client at a low fee, are you going to spend less number of hours? No, because any attest function, any assurance services, where if you have to ensure that the quality is maintained, where you have to ensure that you have complied with all the standards, you have not compromised on application of any of the standards, whether it is an auditing standard or an accounting standard. And if you have complied with all the legal requirements or the regulatory requirements applicable to the client, in that case, if you are ensuring the quality, there has to be a time cost, there has to be efforts that will be required, and a set of competency that will be required. So we need to evaluate whether we are ensuring professional competence while accepting any engagement. And these things are also relevant when you perform the client acceptance and client continuation evaluation or the assessment. So on which also we are going to cover this in detail. The other one is confidentiality, because of we are privy to various information that may or may not be available to outsiders, and that's why it is a responsibility casted on the auditors that they ensure the confidentiality of the client information. Because of the new normal of working remotely enforced by COVID-19, the requirement of the client confidentiality and confidentiality of the client documentation have gained all the more importance and have become all the more relevant, because it is very easy if you don't have proper information technology policies in the organization, the digitally obtained information may be compromised. So the firm has to be mindful of that, and they have to include all these things, which is evolving based on the changes that is happening economically or otherwise. So because of COVID-19, even the smaller firms, the larger firms, the mid-sized firms and all, they have reinforced, revisited, reiterated their IT policies to ensure the client confidentiality of the documentation and the information obtained digitally has been ensured and intact. The other one is the professional behavior, exercise of the professional skepticism, behaving professionally, keeping a invisible wall between becoming more personal to the client as against behaving professional is very, very relevant for the purpose of appropriate delivery of the assurance engagement. So we have to be mindful throughout the engagement that we are exercising the professional skepticism and we are ensuring the professional behavior. So these principles are required to be reinforced by the firm leadership, by education and training across the levels, so that the person are kept abreast about these kind of things, and they are not just just informed once in a year. So just in case if they miss out during the year, if it is not regularly reiterated to them by way of education and training, and obviously the monitoring, because if there is a threat in the mind of everyone that the things are being monitored, so there will be less chances of skipping the process or the procedures. So that's how monitoring is also very, very relevant. When it comes to the there are any non-compliances that are observed. So the process of dealing with the non-compliances is also very much relevant, because although all the checks and controls are put in place, however, there may be circumstances which may lead to a non-compliance, which may be happened inadvertently or because of the ignorance. In either of the circumstances, the firm has to take the timely action as soon as any such non-compliance is brought to the notice of the firm's quality control team or the quality control partner or even the engagement partner. So at any level of the engagement, if any non-compliance is observed, there should be a proper mechanism in the firm as per the policies laid down. The non-compliance is brought to the appropriate level and has been addressed. So these we spoke about the ethical requirements and the principles that are governing the ethical requirements. We cannot undermine the importance of being independent when it comes to the audit profession or the audit role. And the independence is core to the audit profession, audit role that we all are aware of. With respect to independence, there should be communicated the requirement of being independent throughout the engagement team, across the partners in the firm, and to others to the extent applicable. For example, the external experts, if they are also part of the engagement team. And the independence can be ensured by taking the independence confirmation from them that yes, they are independent of the particular assurance client, and there is no independence breach or the threat. Also, as soon as they come across something like if there is a threat or there is a breach at a later stage of the engagement, even that should be immediately communicated at an appropriate level and appropriately addressed, either by removing the threat or by eliminating the threat, or in certain circumstances, you may want to withdraw from the engagement. Now, what happens in case of audit? There is a requirement that we need to have the engagement letter. And as per the engagement letter, if you are appointed auditor, then you have to perform the audit for the particular year and you have to give your opinion. If you do not include such clause in your engagement letter, it may take you to the litigation. So in the engagement letter, we should consciously include a clause that if at a later stage of the engagement, because when you are signing the engagement letter, that time you are obviously 100% sure that there is no independence threat. There is no other threat why you cannot accept this engagement. So at a later stage, if you come across something, so that scenario should already be factored in your engagement letter. And it should be mentioned that at a later stage of the engagement, if you come across something which may cause that either you cannot continue as an auditor or you have to take appropriate actions, you will be communicating to those charged with the governance, you will be communicating to the board of directors, and if appropriate, you may want to withdraw from the engagement. So such clause should also be included in the engagement letter. In the normal circumstances, this may not get triggered, but in exceptional circumstances, you may come across, so there such clauses will save you. And certainly withdrawal from the engagement has to be also in connection with the other regulatory requirements. So if you are an auditor of a listed company, you come across something, or there is a difference of opinion between the management and the auditors. So suddenly one fine day, the auditor cannot write to the listed company management that they want to withdraw from the engagement, because there are SEBI regulations, there are listing agreement regulations. Those are saying that for at least n number of quarters or such and such period, you have to continue. So those things also be kept in mind while whenever such non-compliances are observed, the auditor is adhering to these things, along with ensuring the regulatory requirement. Those are imposed on them as an auditor. So the firm's policies and procedures should enable the communication of independence requirement to the engagement team, to the firm personnel and others. Also identification and evaluation of circumstances or the relationship that may threaten the independence. Now, what kind of relationship may threaten the independence? So if the firm, some other service line is performing some non-audit services or some kind of advisory services in the capacity of the management consultant, which are not allowed under the Companies Act, or which are not allowed under the other relevant regulatory requirements. In that case, like as soon as first of all, the firm should be having procedure in place where all the service lines are confirming if they are having any conflicting services with the in prospective audit client or with the existing audit client or the assurance client. At the first stage, if there is no such threat observed, then obviously you go one step forward. But during the later stage, if somebody comes to know that there are some advisory services or some other services that has been given to either the client or their group entity, in that case, this is again the example where during the process, you get to know that yes, there is an independence that is getting breached or that is getting impacted, and either you take a conscious decision of withdrawing from the other services, or you take a conscious decision of withdrawing from the assurance engagement. So that identification and evaluation needs to be there as a process and the procedure in the firm, also at the during the continuation of the engagement. The appropriate action needs to be taken, and without that, there can't be we just can't say that we have the policies and the procedures, we have identification and evaluation process working, we have also identified that yes, there were some kind of non-compliances happening, but we couldn't take any action because the engagement was in progress. We have to take the action if something like this comes to our attention, and those should be reflected in the policies and the procedures. Those are set at the firm level. And the resolution of the breaches wherever there is a independence violation happening. Obtaining of the annual return confirmation has already been touched upon. With respect to the creating the policies and procedures, the firm has to update its records at least once in a year. It may be a quarterly, it may be a semi-annually, it may be a annually, but at least once in a year, it has to keep updating its records, keep the annual written confirmation from each and every member of the firm who are involved in the assurance functions, and also design the policies to make sure that it would get notified of breaches of independence, because independence is not a one-day exercise. It's not a one-time exercise. It has to be there throughout the year. It has to be working throughout the year. Just by signing an independence confirmation on 1st of April, I cannot say that, yes, I am independent for the entire financial year. I have to regularly monitor, ensure that I am independent of all the engagements where I am the engagement partner, of all the engagements where the firm is providing assurance services if I am in the capacity of the partner. At the same time, also the audit of the in respect of the audit of the listed entities, the rotation of the engagement partner every 7 years. While in case of listed entities, the term of the audit firm could be up to 10 years, but the firm should ensure, as per the policies, that after 7 years, the same engagement partner is not the engagement partner for the 8th year. There should be other independent partner who was not earlier engaged in this particular client and who should be made the engagement partner to ensure that there is an independence of the partners and all ensured as far as the continuous relationship for a particular listed client is concerned. So with this, we cover the ethical requirements, including the independence. Then we move on to the acceptance and the continuation client relationship. Whenever we take a new client, that time there are n number of client acceptance procedures. Those are being performed generally. But many a times people skip on ensuring that client continuation procedures are also done with equal concentration and importance. They feel that, okay, I have already evaluated the client, I have already checked their integrity, I have already checked the other consideration with respect to the client is concerned when I was accepting the client, and hence what is the need of revisiting the requirement for the client continuation on a year-on-year basis, so that one need to get their views corrected, because client acceptance is one part. Year-on-year basis, when you are continuing with the same client, at least again and again, you have to at least once in a year evaluate the client continuation as well. So you need to ensure with respect to the client continuation, if there are any circumstances, those have got significantly changed from the previous year. So if those circumstances are going to impact your scope, your deliverables, your role as an auditor in the current year, then certainly you have to evaluate if there is an independence threat, if you are meeting all the other relevant ethical requirements in respect of a continued client. There may so happen that in the previous year, there were n number of issues, audit observations, tough discussions that has happened with the client. And in such circumstances, many a times what happens, the audit team just say that, okay, it's a continued client. They just fill the form for the sake of filling and continue on the client. But no, having very, very tough discussions with the client on the matters that are absolutely appropriate or reasonable, give an indication that the client is not open for the objective evaluation of their accounting positions or the accounting issues that the client industry or the client is exposed to. And that creates a kind of threat on auditors, because if the tone at the top itself is not reasonable or appropriate, and they are always defensive, that why the position that they have taken, auditor cannot concur to that. And if auditors have got their good reason of not concurring to their positions, so in such kind of discussion, and if such discussions are more regular, more happening in respect of complex audit matters, then certainly the auditor needs to evaluate whether the client continuation in such client is appropriate or not. Another indicator of, checking whether the client continuation is appropriate or no is where the client is constantly focusing on reducing the audit fees. So one may feel that okay, they are also having a pressure of of the cost cutting, ensuring their profit margins, ensuring their top lines, ensuring their restricting their expenses or the cost and all everything. However, even the client has to be cognizant of the efforts that are required for performing, for ensuring the compliance with the relevant requirements and the time and cost that the audit firm is incurring. So, in such circumstances, also it is very much relevant that the client continuation is appropriately adhered to. So, client continuation is one part. Then coming to the client acceptance. While accepting the clients, definitely we will check on the integrity of the management. We will check the nature and the nature of the operations of the client, etc. So, there are furthermore requirement, like to what extent the firm's ethical requirements have been adhered to, if there were any issues raised by the previous auditors. So all these kind of things also needs to be ensured when we perform a client acceptance. So with this, yes, I conclude on the client acceptance and the continuation bit, and we can move it forward to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for sharing the practical examples on the ethical requirements. I'm sure the members are really going to be benefited by your experience. Sir, now I request MPV sir. Sorry to call you MPV sir. That's how we have been addressing you in the office, sir. Sorry, MP Vijay Kumar sir. Sir, we would like you to talk about the two last elements on the quality control, the engagement performance and the human resources.
Sure.
Sir, please.
So thanks, Ruchika, and greetings to all. Trust all of you are safe and your near and dear ones in good health. Sincere thanks for the invite to Durgesh Bhai, founder chairman of CAQ, and Ranjit Bhai, deputy convener, for whom I have a personal admiration for his leadership in introducing UDIN and rolling out the new code of ethics. Also, sincere compliments to the team ICA for building a strong foundation for CAQ. In fact, CAQ is one of those bodies within institute where council has decided to give a consistent leadership for a block of 3 years, so that it is built on a very strong foundation. And Durgesh Bhai has been leading it right from the foundation formation of this body. And the institute, at least I still recall the deliberations, they decided on this organization to be formed for improving audit quality through capacity building, and today is one such initiative, and thereby enhance the stature of the profession. I will begin with sharing my perspectives, very, very fundamental, very basic, all of you are aware, but I would still like to capture them now so that it can be connected with the requirements in SQC1 relating to human resources. First and foremost, all of us are aware that the audit report or audit opinion is the outcome of the entire effort which goes in the conduct of the audit. Secondly, the audit opinion is a communication. Just like each of us in our personal life want any communication we receive to be truthful and to be complete. Anything we receive, whether it's from family members, whether it's colleagues from office, or even external market participants, even if you go to a shop, we all have this expectation that when we receive a communication, it has to be truthful and complete. And in the context of audit opinion, which is also a communication, it cannot be different. Audit communication, 3 C's are important. A, it has to be clear, no ambiguity, candid, bold, and complete. Extremely important. Third, I heard both Vijay and Hemlata very intensely. And I'd just like to carry on from what the two mentioned. The audit profession is all about estimates and exercising judgments. Every organization which is manufacturing products or rendering services, whether it is manufacturing a car or any component or an IT service, there are always some quantitative yardsticks to measure quality. Quantitative yardsticks to measure quality. But in the context of an audit practitioner, audit professional, where you're all the time dealing with estimates and you are making judgments, inherently it is a gray area. It's a gray. It's neither black nor white. It's gray. And in such an area, to define quality, to measure quality in an objective manner is near impossibility. So it's very important to accept fundamentally that quality in the context of an audit profession is not easy. It's not easy for the reasons which I just articulated. And the only way you can ensure quality is by having the right people, policies, and procedures. People who are competent, who have commitment, and who breathe ethics. And Hemlata gave enough examples while she explained the same. The fourth element which I'd like to mention, and Vijay articulated it in one way, I will articulate it a little differently. Audit is most often, almost every case, a legal requirement. It is something which flows from a provision of law, whether it's a Companies Act or a Society Act or whichever legislation. The legislation mandates audit. The moment a legislation is mandating an audit, irrespective of whether it is a public interest entity, listed entity, bank, insurance, or a family business which is small, the moment legislation has mandated it, public interest is at the core. Independent of the appointing authority. Who appoints doesn't matter. There are many people who keep arguing that appointment should be done by an independent organization body. I don't believe it. It's a different subject for discussion later. As a professional, independent of who is appointing, as an auditor, particularly when you do an audit which is mandated by legal requirement, the responsibility towards public at large is inherent. Contrast that with a due diligence assignment. Company A Limited appoints you to do a due diligence of B Limited for acquisition. Such a due diligence, client interest is important because that is a private engagement. It's not mandated out of law. A Limited is seeking your knowledge, expertise to give assessment on the acquisition of B. Their client interest is important. Lastly, point 5, specific to the topic. And I come from background of being in practice as well as in industry. While most organizations, including accounting firms, I've been part of an accounting firm, which those days was 70 people strong, and now probably they are 150 people. Even at that time, we had a 2-member HR organization, which was separate. 2-member organization those days when we were a small organization. And HR function, in my experience, is a function which has to be owned by every manager and every team leader. You can have a separate organization to administratively support you, but the responsibility of ensuring and developing quality human resources and good human resource practices, where you have people who remain competent and who remain committed and who subscribe to the philosophy of the firm, ethics of the firm. That responsibility is with the manager and every team leader. The moment we see HR and team engagement initiatives as a separate function, mark my words, my experience, it will be fatal. Equally important, and Vijay so beautifully articulated this multiple times, the head of the HR function is always the CEO or the head of the firm. It is the CEO's responsibility, the managing partner, whatever nomenclature we may follow, to ensure that the org structure is correct and there are adequate, competent people in place, and there is a good recognition mechanism in place. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sharing from my experience, even when I was in practice, seeing very many audit clientele, my experience, recognizing 10-15% of your organization out of the total population requires courage. Most people like to recognize in private, but recognition in front of everybody requires courage, and that ability is important. Equally important for the leadership is the ability to issue pink slips, that is termination notices, to those who do not scale. In fact, continuing to have a tolerable environment, an environment which tolerates mediocrity, that itself goes against the principle of recognition. So mediocrity tolerance should never be encouraged in a firm, and that's a very bad leadership. That's a very bad leadership. And I just want to add on to one of the beautiful points that Vijay Maniar brought out, which is the tone at the top. Just like when we go to audit, we look at the tone of the top to get an assessment of the extent of risk which is there in the organization. We also need to recognize that the users of financial statement, the stakeholders who rely on audit opinion, also look at the tone at the top of the audit firm doing the audit. They know that this particular audit firm, there are 7, 8, 10 people who are generally visible in the public platform and whose consistent behavioral aspects and the professional work they have done, there is a tone which they are communicating. That tone at the top of an audit firm is equally important. Now coming specifically to the requirements of SQC1 in the area of human resources. And there are fairly elaborate requirements which are set out in SQC1. Almost about 20 plus paragraphs are there. I don't know the exact count, maybe 23, 24 paragraphs. And these paragraphs on human resources in SQC1 have a few very, very important, beautifully laid down requirements. While I try to recollect some of them and share with you for all the participants here on the call, I'd request you to just do an introspection of within your firm, where are we on this aspect? Where are we on our aspect? And please note, these are not recommendatory practices which are in SQC1. These are the minimum requirements. So if a firm needs to be in the profession of audit, and Vijay so beautifully talked about, it's a serious profession. Just like when you get into an aircraft, on the left-hand side, the pilot's door says, flying is serious business. Audit has always been serious, is serious, and will continue to be serious. Very simple reason, very, very simple reason, because all of us are not dealing with facts. We are actually dealing with estimates and judgments. It's all estimates. Every single number in your financial statement is an estimate. And there are tons of judgments which we make. And hence it is goddamn serious. So some requirements in the area of HR in SQC1, as I recall, one is the responsibility to ensure there are enough number of people with the right capabilities, competencies, commitments to the ethical principles. So when it comes to, look at these words, each of these words is so very important. People with capabilities, competence, and commitment to ethical principles. So look at your own firm, the scale of work we do, and are we adequately staffed on these metrics for us to deliver quality services. Second, policies and procedures on some 7-8 areas are listed down. I will focus on 3 things. I'll focus on 3 things. The SQC1 requires you to have a formal procedures and policies on several things, but I'll just focus on 3 things. One is on performance evaluation. Second is on career development. And third is on the compensation. As far as the performance evaluation is concerned, it's extremely important to ensure people are adequately motivated. And good policies and procedures on career development are important because when you have younger staff who are actually the front line of the audit firm, age 27, age 30, age 32, unless they have clarity on their career development within the firm, their commitments will get diluted. So it's important to have a very well laid out and articulated career development plan within the firm so that my audit managers, age 27, 32, 35, they know this is their plan, this is their developmental path, so that their commitment levels don't get diluted as time passes by. And then another element is on their compensation, right compensation. If the compensation metrics are inappropriate, while in the context of an audit firm, I have to deliver quality irrespective of the compensation I get from the client. I don't think in a live environment, you can expect the same from your staff. From the audit team, if they aren't compensated in a right manner, there will be impact on quality at some time. So it's important that we should have policies and procedures which ensures right compensation. So you can't apply the same logic with reference to the way we do our client work with reference to expecting our staff to do work for us. We shouldn't try to do that. That's pretty important. The third point which I'd like to highlight from what is there in SQC1 is a competency and capability development. It talks about education, continuous profession, etc. But I want to highlight one aspect which the SQC1 so beautifully talks about is work experience. There's no substitute to work experience. You can have 3 lines of professional degrees. You can have whatever, but the right kind of work experience is extremely important. I'll give a small example, and I find many still making this mistake. Many have an impression that if an NBFC audit opportunity comes, it's a small NBFC. Why don't I just do the NBFC audit? I know how to do audit. I know finance, you can do it. Come on, it doesn't work like that. Even if it is a 10 crore NBFC or a 50 crore NBFC, it's so very complex in terms of the RBI master circulars, etc., that unless somebody is up to date on all of those circulars and how those circulars have to be applied, reading and understanding circular is different from applying the circular. And that's where work experience matters. So does it mean that if my firm does not have NBFC experience, I should stay away? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you want to scale such verticals which are specialized, ensure you are able to onboard people who have that sufficient experience. Somebody who has been doing audit of, let's say, a manufacturing company for last 20 years, no matter the seniority, you put him to do it for an NBFC audit. It's just not going to work. You need to ensure that there is a team capable which has that experience of an NBFC audit. So I'm just leaving that as an example, and it's true with many other areas such as e-commerce and some technology space organizations and things like that. And while doing this capacity development, one guideline I'd like to mention, again from my personal experience of engaging with many mid-sized firms, please do not try to do all of the technical training for your staff. Most audit firms have a Saturday training session and all. They try to do it by themselves. Please don't try to do everything by yourself. It's not possible. Try to see if you can have a few like-minded firms coming in and have resources who can share best practices across. Many times, we all envy some of the large firms. It's good to envy, but the hard truth is those large firms have the ability of learning from a set of firms across the world. That's where the knowledge comes. So we also need to do in our own way in terms of how we can pick up knowledge, continuous professional knowledge, not try to do within the firm itself. See if there can be a network of firms. I'm not saying a formal network. Some like-minded firms come together. Do it at least once a month or 2 months where you can get people to share. The third is on the assignment of engagement teams. One principle I'd like to highlight: when you have an engagement partner whom you are identifying for an engagement, please ensure that that person has both the authority and time. The standard requires, the SQC1 requires that. And it's so very important. So you cannot have a situation where an engagement partner is super busy on so many other things, or he has something personal to attend for the next 6 months, like I have a child marriage at home, whatever reason. You can't have a situation where somebody does the role of an engagement partner as one of the several things to be done. It has to be life. It has to be life. So there should be authority for the person. He should be properly empowered. He should not feel intimidated or pressurized. And Hemlata spoke about independence and all so very nicely, and those so many threats. And more importantly, time. The engagement partner should be somebody who can have time. And while allocating the team members, as I mentioned a little while ago, have team members who have an understanding of and the practical experience with engagements of similar nature and complexity. And Does the engagement partner have the ability to apply professional judgment? For example, I am aware of people who have been in employment industry for 15 years, and they just come into practice and want to sign balance sheets. There can be exceptions, but as a rule, there can be exceptions. Bright people, there can be exceptions, but as a rule, applying professional judgment requires that bit of experience. It requires experience. So you need to have an engagement partner who has that ability to exercise that professional judgment. And lastly, as far as the firm is concerned, they should have policies and procedures. SQC1 requires this on how to deal with consultation and dealing with differences of opinion. Hemlata talked about having in the letter of engagement clauses for withdrawing from an engagement if there is a difference, all this kind of thing. But here, within the firm, within the engagement team, while you perform audit, there will be some areas where you will not have expertise. You should be able to stand up boldly and say that I don't understand this. I'm not able to understand. Let's take something as simple as ESOP accounting. I don't understand it. Fine, doesn't matter. It's not necessary. Everybody should know everything. So if I don't understand, then I need to consult. It can be an external consulting firm. The standard, the SQC1 encourages you to do. It allows you to do. Engage someone, take the necessary expertise. Similarly, differences of opinion, have a process. And on difference of opinion, friends, on independence, you can actually walk the talk only by creating an environment where your staff members can freely express and differences of opinion is respected. If you have an office environment where the boss always says, "Isko kuch pata nahi hai, ye theek nahi hai, wo theek nahi hai," the moment you have conversations like that, which means you are killing independence within your firm. Gift sab chhod do. Leave all the gift and all those things. Within your firm itself, you are not allowing people to express themselves. You should create that environment where, and let me tell you my experience, most occasions I've come across some lapses, gaps, etc. from people who look so very innocent or who look like, "Arey baba, ye kya bolega?" You get those kind of people. In fact, Hemlata was talking about it like, not that every tough person is a wrongdoer or every soft person is a good guy. Like that, you should have in your audit team, the 4 people, 5 people, each personality is different. So you should create that environment within your firm to walk the talk on independence. That's very important. And I'd like to quote and conclude by quoting a former or the founder president of the institute, late Sri G.P. Kapadia. In fact, my 6 years of the institute, my best learnings have been learning about this gentleman. I don't know how much I adore him. I adore him so much. I adore him. Having read all his speeches, and whatever he said in 1950, they hold good even now. And such visionary people. Let me quote one paragraph from his. To quote, "Technical excellence in the performance of its functions, the firm's functions, and observance of highest in professional ethics constitutes the foundation on which the future can be built up." Unquote. Thank you all for patient listening and look forward for an exciting deliberation in the panel.
Thank you so much, sir. Your knowledge, sharing amongst the firms is a great takeaway. I think most of the firms should consider doing that. We talk about networking internationally. We have so-called big firms who do that. But yes, why not the small firms come together? They share the knowledge. So I'm sure it's a great takeaway from the today's session, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, just when we have heard all the three panelists, few questions which we would like to clear for the benefit of the participants. Like what happens in a scenario when, the engagement partner himself has been taking gifts from the clients, he himself, and, as an engagement team member, you are witnessing this, but where do you go? How does it work in the environment? I can just say it's a small firm, but it's not very small. He's not a sole proprietor. We have other partners, and we do not have a so-called designated managing partner there. So how do you think this should be addressed? Sir, your views. Any one of you would like to?
Can I?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah. No, no. So I think as MPV rightly, mentioned, there has to be environment. If something is going wrong, whoever is, right from the intern to the partner should be able to raise, and that environment, needs to be created. But if that environment is not there, I think the quality suffers. And then all this will get into the, consequential of, signing the wrong audit opinion. If the partner is taking, so it's an environment which, one lives. So if the partner is taking such expensive gifts, then, others in the firm will also start, taking those gifts. So I think we have to set, by an example, saying that, trust me, and this is my sharing from my experience, a lot of times, the partners or the seniors may not be aware of that the gifts are such expensive gifts. And I have had, so probably, in terms of, if they are busy, the gift may have been lying somewhere, or they may not been aware. Correct. And from the experience I'm sharing is that my senior and myself, we had got the gift. And, I opened and I thought it is very expensive. But partner was not there in, those days, you would not call just somebody on the phone. But after 2 days, when, he came and I mentioned to him, he was not aware. And then we both went to the client saying that, thank you for your generosity and, your respect for us. But, sorry, but we cannot accept such, expensive gift. So I think we need to have that kind of environment to, speak to the seniors. And that is the responsibility again of the leadership.
Yeah, thank you. Ma'am, you had mentioned that, every 7 years, the engagement partner needs to be rotated out. Does it go for the engagement team as well, or it's just the partner which needs to rotate out?
So it's restricted or ensured at least at a partner level as a good governance standard. Though it is not necessitated by any regulatory requirement, but you may also think of rotating the engagement manager. But yes, engagement manager's rotation is not required because the ultimate decision maker is the partner who is entrusted with the responsibility of questioning and seeking the clarification and ensuring the appropriate audit evidence has been given to the members. So that's how the responsibility is casted on the engagement partner's rotation. But as a good governance, you may also think of rotating the chief engagement manager.
Okay. Yeah. So, ma'am, can we ask you? What is the difference between SQC1 and SA220 per se?
Certainly. So, SQC1, if you look at, is saying that the audit firm is supposed to maintain the quality control system at a firm level. So it is at a firm level, while SA220 is casting the responsibility of having an appropriate engagement level quality control system on the engagement partner. So the basic scope of SQC1 is much larger and extending not only to the audit engagements, but also to the other engagements, including reviews, including the other related assurance services. While in case of SA220, it is restricted to the audit of the historical financial information or audit of the financial statements. Here, in case of SQC1, the responsibility is on the overall quality control function that is established at a firm level, while in case of SA220, each and every engagement partner is responsible for ensuring quality control process working efficiently and designed appropriately at each and every engagement level. So it's a offshoot of SQC1, which is much larger in the scope and applicable at a firm wide, while SA220 is towards a little micro level and applicable for each engagement.
Fine. Sir, MPV sir, we would just like to know, I mean, you are a CFO and you represent the industry today also at this forum. We would like to know whether, while appointing an auditor, do we actually, the companies do consider the SQCs in place at the firm level? I mean, is there a consideration while appointment of the auditor?
Yes, Ruchika, it certainly is there. And my experience, both in my company as well as in the boards where I am, generally there are at least 3 to 4 board members who have a reasonable idea of the audit profession. It's not necessary that all the 10 board members have an idea, but at least 3-4 board members have a reasonably good idea of the framework in which the audit profession works. So there are certainly questions or inquiries around the firm's quality control procedures when they give their proposals for considering for appointment. So there are certainly some questions around that. And in the recent past, I've come across even a couple of members asking questions like, have you been subject to QRB review by ICAI? Or have any of your clients' works, have they been subject to reviews by NFRA? I think those couple of questions are coming. They're coming up and people are responding to that. And one standard question I find everywhere is question on, are there any disciplinary proceedings? I think that part, the message seems to have gone to all the board members. So that's a very standard question which they ask. And there are people who ask, please present us, what is your org structure and your leadership stability, how long they have been in the firm, and what is the extent of commitment they have to be within the firm, how much is the skin in the game. I think those questions are certainly there, and they form part of the criteria in choosing the audit firm to engage. And when I say audit firm, not necessarily the statutory auditor, it's even for other services. It could be appointment of internal auditor or other kind of services which accounting firms render.
Sir, have you ever, has the ever board asked about the audit quality review points which the engagement partner scored internally? Have ever, such questions cropped up? No. No. Internationally, we have been seeing that, at few countries, they do ask, and it's mandatory for the engagement partner to share those numbers. So just asking.
I have not come across, to be honest, I have not come across.
Yeah. Okay. Sir, we take it to Vijay Mania, sir. Sir, we have been talking about engagement quality reviews in the SQC1. So can an engagement partner consult the EQC reviewer during the engagement? Do you feel it's okay? Or do you think it, compromises the eligibility to perform the roles?
So I think let's, go back to, what is the role of EQCR? Correct. Number one is that the audit report is appropriate under the circumstances. Correct. But from a client perspective, I think we need to ensure that, firm has to ensure that there are no last moment surprises, right? It has to be timely delivered. So if the engagement partner does not consult EQCR on the areas which is the responsibility of EQCR to review. So like, if what are the significant risks, how those are addressed, right? What is the outcome of those procedures of those significant risks? And, how do because, EQCR comes into play in the initial period, but, this is based on the evidences, but, if based on the execution of auditing procedure, if there is something which comes out of it, then some item which was not a significant risk could become a significant risk and vice versa. So EQCR needs to be consulted, on those matters, independence matter which comes in, and, Hemlata pointed out various scenarios where, and this becomes the responsibility of EQCR for, engagement team to consult EQCR, or as MPV has been mentioning about judgments and estimates, which is a very core importance. Now, if there is any consultation, needs to be done, or anything in the audit report or the financial statements, how matters of, say, whatever are the audit differences which arose, which were either, entries were passed or not passed. All these matters, I think EQCR has to be consulted on an ongoing basis. I think this misnomer has to go. And let me share with you, internationally, people actually say that, I'm an engagement partner, because, those are all multinational companies they audit. So they say I audit this one or two, companies, and I'm EQCR on this one company, because that is the role. It's a very active role in terms of this. So EQCR needs to be consulted. It's not a post facto. It is an ongoing exercise.
And sir, how do you think that the inspection of the same assignment, I mean, the EQCR has been performed, now there's an inspection. So what do you think is the contribution when these inspections, the engagements go through? Because, EQCR, I as an engagement partner, I've done my role. You being an EQCR, you have done your role. Now, what does an inspection contribute to the same engagement?
So idea is, inspection looks at it from a different perspective, because first, it looks at it whether EQCR was involved in all the areas which are, expected, because ultimately it's a responsibility of the engagement partner. The buck stops with the engagement partner. But this is a statutory role of EQCR. So whether EQCR has done, this, what is the evidence? A lot of times, and this is important, that what is the evidence that EQCR, and, nowadays regulators are also asking, is what kind of questions which EQCR is, what are the review comments, and how those review comments have been, resolved. Also the time which is being charged, larger firm has, all this electronic timesheet. So when is that time which was signed off, and what was the stage at which, the engagement was there as compared to the time which was charged? So it's become, so onerous on EQCR also. And, in one of this is, NAFRA, though matter is still, sub judice, they've also held that, EQCR is also, held guilty of, not performing what is expected from EQCR. So it's a very important, role. EQCR is not something outside. It's part of the engagement team, I would say.
Agreed, sir. Sir, engagement partner needs to factor the time required for the EQCR. There is no doubt about it. And we have seen it in the NAFRA reports also, where they have factored the time, they have factored the signature, the date of the EQCR review. Everything has been factored. So, of course, EQCR is really important. And down the line, we see ISQM2, which talks about engagement quality reviewers appointment. So the process is there and it's going to be more stringent, more important in the years down to come. One question we'll take from the participants are, he wants to know, ma'am has already covered the written confirmation independence requirements from all the personnel under the ethical requirements. So what he wants to know is that this is all what goes all in ensuring the ethics at the firm level. I think you have spoken about the other factors too,
Right.
but what exactly, I mean, yes, this is one of the requirements that you take independence from all of the firm personnel. But he still wants to know what all goes in ensuring the ethics at the firm level. So that
Certainly. So, yeah. So I will just touch upon what I covered when I was discussing the ethical requirements required at a firm level as per the SQC1. So first, to answer the first part of the question, written independence confirmation obtained at least annually is one of the important procedures, but it's not a holistic or a sufficient procedure on its own. So just by seeking a written confirmation from individuals will not waive the responsibility of the firm to ensure that the appropriate ethical requirements are adhered to by each and every member of the firm. And the ethical requirements, those are based on the ensuring integrity, objectivity, professional competency, confidentiality, professional behavior, etc. And these needs to be enforced at a firm level, at a leadership level, through the continuous trainings and the education. There should be a monitoring, and there should be a process of dealing with the non-compliances.
Yeah. One more participant wants to know that how can the rotation of engagement be addressed at a proprietorship firm level?
Yeah, this is a very, very apt and very important question, because while we say that in case of a listed company, there should be rotation of the engagement partner at least every 7 years. But in case of proprietor, where only a single partner is there and he is supported with qualified, semi-qualified associates and all, how do he ensure this? So as an exception, proprietorship firms are not required to ensure the rotation of the partner because there is only one person. And if they are appointed for the continuous 2 terms of the by the entity, by the listed entity, in that case, the same proprietor partner can continue and he will be continuing as the engagement partner. However, he should be having appropriate demonstration that there is no conflict, there is no compromise with the independence and the other ethical requirements.
Okay. And MPV sir, a participant wants to know from you as to how to maintain quality of audit amongst the articles.
Quality audit of articles. No, I think it's all about training, mentorship, and giving them right work exposure. I don't think I can add beyond this. It'll become a lengthy answer, but it's hard work. It's certainly hard work to ensure that the staff are adequately trained.
Yeah. Okay. So we go ahead with our questions. So what would you say are the relevant considerations for small versus, networking firms in relation to monitoring element of the SQC1? When we talk about monitoring and we have a very small firm and we have bigger firm, there's a large firm has systems in place. And what about a small firm, sole proprietor or 2 partner firm? So how do we monitor? Because everything is known. I know everything. He's taking charge for the other area.
Yeah, no, I think I briefly mentioned in my opening remarks, small firms should be open to have review partners from other firms. And networking firms should welcome subject matter experts in other firms in the network to be review partners, or at least do inspection in a phased manner over time, covering all the major audits. most importantly, when members, say, as far as this monitoring element and complying with ethics is concerned, my own experience is, I think Vijay gave that example with he and his senior got a gift and all. I think people will actually start practicing ethics when they see that happening. When there are people walking the talk, when people walking the talk, that's how you actually train people on ethics as well. And the confidence also increases. I always keep quoting this observation from the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi used to say, "My life is my message." And it's so true when it comes to ethics and professional practices. It's only walk the talk, which will make a difference. So small firms, I think they should not hesitate to have review partners from other firms. If you have to share some fee, so be it. I don't think you should compromise quality by not having it from outside. And networking firm should be little transparent. They should not be hesitating. And most people hesitate to share client information, client relationships. I think they should come out of that hesitation. And if there are good subject matter for experts in other firms in the network, you should invite them and give the necessary support as a review partner.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Vijay, sir, with so many startup companies, what, as per you, should be the considerations that must be exercised before acceptance of a new client startup, where you do not have too much of
Correct. I know.
things to go back to refer to?
Yeah, I know. So I know it's a tricky situation to become auditors of startup, as you rightly mentioned. There is no track record, right? So one thing I think we should look at is, if startup is funded, who has funded that startup? That becomes critical. This, I think, background check we need to do little more, because everybody has some kind of background, that is a formal, but some kind of background we need to do. We need to understand the business model. But our understanding, so we are accountants, may not be appropriate. So the company which does not have a revenue generation model would have would become a unicorn, and then suddenly it will have a revenue model.
Yeah.
So that going concern becomes very, very important. And we should have all these discussions, upfront with them. These are the challenges. How are you going to, get funded? Who is going to back you? Are they making, payments to employees, vendors, and regulatory payments on a timely basis? One thing which is contradictory, what happens is, most of the startups, they feel that they can do anything. So they are very aggressive, because that's inherent. That's because they say, why can't it be? Because that is where they are there, and those, they give examples of successful startups. So I think, how do we, balance? And do we have, say, CFO who is also, any experienced CFO is there, other board members are there. I think they may not have such a large setup, but these are very important things, and this is, as I said, more riskier audits than otherwise considered. So more kind, one, the background check, which Hemlata rightly mentioned on all the parameters, but one has to go beyond and very closely monitor how it is progressing.
It's a time for startups, sir. The audit profession also do not have a choice. Yes, but it's a tricky decision to
take. If we have done any channel to work as a firm, I think that could be the good, because if there is some experience, as a firm, if we have done any non-audit work, That could be, one area. So I think we need to do more investigation around the startup. As I said, we may not understand, so it may not have any revenue, but who are the people who are backing? And we are not competent to judge their business model.
Right.
Uh,
Sir, one more
it's
question.
more
to
challenging.
you.
It's more challenging.
Right.
That's
Yeah, it is more definitely more challenging.
Sir,
Sir, one more question to you. MPV sir also mentioned today that we should be open to consultations. We need to consult the subject matter experts. So do you think it always contributes to improving quality? We've talked about estimates, professional judgment, which does differ between you and me, MPV sir and you. So how does consultation really, you say, it contributes to audit quality?
See, it is, let me tell you, it has tangible benefits, intangible benefits, right? More intangible benefits, if I were to say, is if I know that I have ability to consult somebody. That gives me a lot of relief. I was, part of the firm where, any complexity, I would, call up somebody, and that complexity, formally, informally, I could discuss. So that is the biggest comfort and the confidence I have that, I am, the audit quality is as expected. But that is the intangible part of, getting the confidence. But the tangible part of it is, as MPV rightly mentioned, is if I don't know, I need to raise my hands and say, boss, ESOP accounting, I do not. Or that, if there is any complex transaction which the client has done, and I think this is how the way of, accounting, but let me consult the expert. Or if there is a, typical situation, and I need to bring it out in the audit report, let me consult somebody who's an expert to saying that, am I missing? Because ultimately it's the reputation of the firm, the consistency of the view of the firm, right? So am I, reporting whatever is required to be reported? Am I missing? Am I overdoing it? Am I underdoing? Is it a matter, if I'm saying it's a matter of emphasis, is it a qualification, and vice versa? Let me give you one example, which is Hemlata said, and this is the example which has come to my mind, is on COVID. Now COVID, suddenly all this stock verification, right? It has undergone a change. Now let me tell you, there is nothing different which the institute has given, or any of the accounting regulators has given anything outside the accounting standards or auditing standards, is what is required to be done for the stock verification. It's a different, channel which is, they've given the guidance. But if what I'm doing the stock verification, is it appropriate in the circumstances? I may consult somebody, right? These are the 2-3 options which are available. Is it the right option I'm taking? So what I'm saying is the consultation for if there is a litigation, I can, have consultation. If there is, complexities, I can do the consultation. So I'm saying consultation is not hindrance. The only issue which is there, and this is the challenge which, we face, is the consultation process is started a bit late. And that should be started on a timely basis, so that, there are no delays, because that expert needs to be on board sooner. He needs to understand, what is the complexity, and accordingly give the view. So that process is something, but otherwise, consultation process it's a fantastic process. Formal, informal consultation should be encouraged. It has many intangible benefits in addition to tangible benefits.
But sir, in case of formal consultations, then the engagement partner, is he bound to follow whatever the advice has come?
Not necessarily. Ultimately, all responsibilities of the engagement partner, right? So engagement partner needs to have a valid reason why engagement partner is not agreeing.
And he should be documenting the reason.
What is the reason why? Because, if the issue which is there, an engagement partner can as well say that this is the reason I'm not agreeing. or that, if there is a strong, complexity and strong view between the two engagement partner and, formal consultation, firm should have some process, may go to some third party who is considered to be, form some kind of group to see, discuss. But bottom line is, buck stops with the engagement partner. I'm very clear.
So what you suggest is that while framing the policies, the firm should look at a scenario where, the formal consultations, the engagement partner do not agree. There should be a system in place where, there is an escalation matrix. There's a way that, it approaches this, and this
correct. There would be somebody with whom, you can approach, either within the firm, outside the firm, outside experts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to agree, just to close the point, this, it should not be that just because the consultation is not agreeing to the view which the client wants, or which I want to support client and which I want, that should not be hindrance for me to not consult. Then that is where a lot of times the firm should also have a process where what kind of identify the areas where consultation becomes mandatory. That should also be, considered as to what situation the consultation becomes mandatory and whom to consult in the process.
So yeah, the areas where the consultation is required must also
mandatorily
be part of the policy. Yes, sir. Good takeaway.
So,
Really get into the
very good insight given by Vijay Bhai on this. First, the importance of the consultation at the appropriate stage of the engagement, and also approaching the consultant on a timely basis. The other aspect which he very, very rightly pointed out, that the engagement partner will be taking the ultimate call whether he want to go with the consultation or he don't want. Because see, many a times we have seen the client gets the consultation, and the consultation is generally supporting the client's views. So if the engagement partner is not comfortable, as in he is not drawing the appropriate comfort, and he is having some some kind of doubt or something, that the consultation given by the client or provided by the client may be biased. So in that case, he has every reason why he should not follow that, and why he can keep it aside. Generally, whenever it is conservative, in line with what the comfort the audit partner is trying to achieve, in that case certainly they will go hand in hand. But if the engagement partner is feeling that the consultation is really very aggressive and just to support the client position, in that case certainly he should avoid it. Is my limited comment on this.
Thank you. We have gone through the quality review board and report of 21, which talks about SQC1 compliances, where the major observations on SQC1 were noticed. Out of the findings, the maximum observations pertain to SQC1, and most of them had observations like no consultations, no processes and policies in place, by which a reviewer can ascertain, that the quality checks have been performed at the firm level. So I'm sure with today's discussion, a lot of the firms, they of course, the standards have been in place, but yes, we are re-emphasizing that you need to have all this in place as a part of the manual, and not just having a manual, implementing the same. When you're talking about, we have to implement the same also across. And of course, biggest takeaway has been, toning at the top. Ultimately, which MPV sir, Vijay sir, everyone has been emphasizing on, there has to be an environment where not just the human, the resources are given a free space to express. They are ethically compliant. Agreed. I'm sure the participants would be really benefiting from today's experience. Before we close for the day, just wanted to ask all the panelists, your views about the new quality control standards, which is the ISQM1 and 2, if at all you would like to share, all three of you. It's open for all three to comment. Ma'am, you can start. Vijay sir, MPV sir, whatever. especially with respect to Indian scenario where we talk about SQC1 and graduating to SQM1. How do you feel about them?
So I've not done the study around this, but I think it is, I can say it is more detailed. So it gives a more and it's more, guidance is provided. Whereas, SQC1, did not provide so much of guidance. I think the underlying matters were similar, but, it is focusing more as to number one, how do we do audit? So it is a risk-based audit approach. So it is a risk-based approach to quality. So what is the area where, so what are the areas where there is a risk as far as the quality is concerned? How this has been addressed, right? And then is there anything missed? Lot of guidance on EQCR, which is where, it's very fundamental, and there is the whole standard, this around EQCR and the elements, which are, as against 6 elements, there are 8 elements, which one is about the information. So what I'm saying is that information is also currently, which is coming in SQC1, but it is actually saying that, hey, don't miss out on the technology, because, it's not only, it is mentioning human resources in SQC1, but here it is talking about resources, which includes not only, human resources, but also financial resources, technology, intellectual resources, because these are also, very, important. And the information. So how the information flows from the top to the down, and down to the up, and also to outsiders, to those charged with governance, to the regulators as and when. So it gives a lot many guidance, and this SQC1 had, though it says what is to be done, ISQM says, if it is, how it can be done, number one, and what are the risks which are associated, and how, and it also addresses those risks. So it helps, it will help in improving the quality. That's what my limited takeaway is there.
MP, sorry, your
I think it's these two documents are what should I say, next generation of SQC1. I think we all understand the importance of audit quality. They are deliberating, they are actually expanding more and being current on the quality aspects. Today, the SQC1 is one single comprehensive document, but with IQSM1, you will have this one standard dealing with the audit firm level processes, procedures, and all, and the standard 2, which has a very high focus on the review partners. I think that was one of the questions which you raised to Vijay, and he was responding on that.
Yes.
So on the review part, I think you were mentioning in the context of that NFRA, I think, NFRA. So as to whether how much responsible is the review partner?
Right.
So I think the answer to that comes in that IQSM2. So I think both of them are steps in the right direction. And I'm sure ICAASB will also look at bringing them into India. It's a matter of time, and we'll deliberate at that time.
Yeah. Okay. So we conclude by mentioning the 6 takeaways from today's session, sir. We start with the environment. Sir, we'll just conclude by this. 1 is the right environment. Then what? 6. Everyone needs to give 1 or 2. Environment, I have taken it from you only. I am pronouncing it differently, that's all. So 1 is, of course, the environment.
Yeah. Second is, I think the managing partner or the CEO of the firm, whatever is concerned, I think that person has a substantial role in terms of ensuring the right human resources are in place. and to percolate the message that unlike any manufacturing company or a services sector where there are objective ways of measuring, here the audit profession is, at least my experience, pardon me for repeating that point, I like this profession because it's all around estimates. I like this profession because it's all around judgments. So it's somebody's experience and competence which actually helps somebody to excel here. That's why I like this profession. And here defining quality, saying that ABCD is over in quality, it doesn't, you can't quantify it. You can't really quantify it. So it's all about what policies, procedures you have, and the spirit in which you are complying with those policies and procedures. If you're doing it from a checkbox point of view, it doesn't work. In fact, I like Vijay in this, when he talked about consultation, he started with that first point. He said, the ability of the person to consult, I think many times the person is not competent to seek consultation. He himself is so tentative that he hesitates to seek consultation. I think he started with that point, So I think that part is very important, that judgment and estimations and quality in that context. It's not easy. Let's not set very high expectations to the user of financial statements that by following SQC1, you are signing on blood. It doesn't happen. I think we should be extremely clear. When we say we have quality control process, people get the impression that, yes, it's gone through quality, so quality is there. It just doesn't work like that. So, in fact, people have signed balance sheets like Vijay and Hemlata will know that it just doesn't happen.
So, okay, environment, we talked about engagement partner, we talked about consultation. Vijay sir.
I said fundamental is, quality is paramount, and no client is more important than the firm and the quality. I think that's very, very important, because, nowhere it says, client acceptance, continuation. You look at the facts, as Emlata, rightly mentioned, you look at the evidence, correct? And it is evidence. So no client is important than the quality of the firm. I think consultation and EQCR we have discussed. So EQCR, I'm putting it as a part of consultation because, all this is, you can bounce it off to somebody. But, outside experts, EQCR, it gives as a partner, more bandwidth, to explore. Partner is not the only one who needs to know everything. And there are experts and on whom the partners can rely.
Ma'am, anything you would like to add?
I think Vijay Bhai and MPV sir has covered in detail everything, but just reiterating what they have said, the core and the foundation is the ethics, the independence, the competency, and the tone at the top. So this is it. All sums up to adherence to SQC1, not only in spirit but also in the documentation.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you all the panelists for a really, enlightening us on the various aspects of SQC1. And MPV sir has gone beyond to SQC1. I mean, to an extent that we actually, all three panelists have given the examples, the practical examples where actually the firms do struggle. They do not want to take consultation. They're not opening to networking. They're not opening to networking to a context that the knowledge sharing can be done. So I think these are the great takeaways from the today's session. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you for the valuable time, and thank you all the participants for joining this afternoon. And we look forward for the next session in October. September being the audit season, we are not doing the session in September, but surely we'll catch up in the first week of October. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be failing in our duty if we don't thank Ruchika. Excellent moderation. And it's so right from the support before the session and during the session. So Ruchika, thank you for everything. You were excellent.
Yeah. Ruchika, I would want to second Vijay Bhai, and I would want to actually tell you, such a seamless moderation, and where we all have come for the first time live together. And it seems that we would have done so much of practice, mock sessions and all, but we are all live. First time we are all on the same this thing, and you have done it so seamlessly. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, you're all three, the panelists are so experienced that we really don't need to do any mock session. When we had these panelists in place.
So seamless.
Ruchika, just a second. In fact, for all the participants who are there today, in fact, for me, one of the most memorable experiences of being at the institute was the quality of the staff at the institute. Amazing quality. And you saw Ruchika today. So, in fact, the strength of the institute is the quality of staff which the institute has. Look at the quality of questions she has prepared, the intensity with which she followed through all the points which we were speaking, and the way she prepared for hosting this. God bless you, Ruchika, and I'm extremely proud of the staff of the institute. So stay blessed.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.